Everyone's time, but both the panelists and the attendees. We will go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. Today's topic is thriving at home, aging in place, staying put, how you can go about thinking about those processes. First, a brief introduction of Capital Senior Solutions. Myself and Laura Quigley, who you see here, and Jesse Felcher, who may be off camera now, we are Brito Associates of Compass. We are residential realtors. And in 2020, we formed a division of our team called Capital Senior Solutions, which specializes in working with older adults and making late in life move transitions. And we approach this from a perspective of education and advocacy for older adults. And we do this through monthly seminars on various topics, such as today's topic. Laura and I, if you decide to move, we can certainly help you with that whole process from beginning to end, including getting involved even a year in advance to get you connected with the resources you need, whether it be professional move managers, estate liquidators, attorneys, junk callers, whatever it is you need. We project manage the whole thing. We do have advanced designations in that world that make us certainly sets us apart from your average realtor, especially any other realtors who specialize in working with older adults. So I'd like to go ahead and share my screen and get our slide up and running. All right, so I've just told you who Laura and I are. These are some of the advanced designations we've achieved. And then moving on, this is our panel of experts that are going to be with us today. We're super excited to have them all. They'll be introducing themselves in just a moment. I'd like to kick it off, however, by saying that, as real estate professionals who specialize in helping older adults downsize from the homes they've lived in for a really long time, it's often 50 years or more, we're typically involved in two types of meetings. Those who are planning to move now or those who are planning to move later. The meeting we rarely get to be involved is the meeting where the couple or the individual says, we're not moving ever. Chances are they aren't calling a real estate person for that type of meeting, right? Of course. So what people are really saying when they're making their housing plans is this: I want to avoid going to a nursing home, period. Or I'm going to remain independent at all costs. So whether you intend to stay put in your current residence or make an eventual move, we'd like to provide you with a new mantra to consider. I'm going to live the best life possible, and I'm going to surround myself with people who can help me do that. So that's exactly why we're here today. And we'd like to introduce you to some people who can help you get healthy, stay healthy, and live your best lives possible. So first of all, I'd like to start off with the panelists introducing themselves, telling us about your role in your company and your background in the healthcare industry. And then there's a few other myths we'd like to clear up, and we have several of those. We'll read the myth, and then we'll let the panelists respond with the truth. And you can ask questions anytime by either raising your hand or putting them in the chat. We'll be monitoring that. And then we should have some time at the end as well for Q&A. I would ask that if you're not speaking, please keep yourself on mute so to eliminate any background noise. But like I said, feel free to raise your hand or put a question in the chat window. So let's kick it off with our introductions. And why don't we start with Steve Lorberbaum?
Okay, well, thank you for including me in the panel. My name is Steve Lorberbaum. I'm the owner of Assisting Hands Home Care. And what we do is we're a private duty home care company. We put aids in people's homes, wherever home is at the moment. It could be a hospital, it could be a rehab, a private residence, even a hotel. We work all over Montgomery County, PG County, and Fairfax County, Virginia. I got into this really through life experiences. I've been doing this for almost 10 years, and both my parents needed aids up in New York, and my father-in-law needed help with dementia about 15 years ago. And we learned a lot the hard way, and my goal is to help educate people so they don't have to do it the way I did. So that's kind of what brings me here today. It's part of my mission to help educate people on how to age in place successfully and with dignity.
Thanks, Steve. Susie Elder Murphy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jan and Laura, for organizing this. I'm Susie Elder Murphy. I'm the owner of Aging Well Elder Care. Last month, we celebrated our 35th year in business, and I've been with the company for 30 out of those 35 years. So at Aging Well Elder Care, we say we're like wedding planners for growing older, or wedding planners for aging well. We have 14 care managers and 12 of our Debbie's Angels concierge companions. So what does a care manager do? We're sort of, some people, we describe ourselves as wedding planners. Some people say we're project manager, but we're the person who you can meet with, and we'll help you understand all of the resources, whether you want to remain at home to age in place or whether you're considering a move. We're all members of the Aging Life Care Association, so we don't have a financial relationship with any resource we recommend. So if you come to us to talk about, should I move to a CCRC? What does that mean? We can talk to you objectively about what the options are and help you understand how much they cost and how different resources, including long-term care insurance, can be used to pay for them. And our Debbie's Angels, our concierge companions, are there for life enrichment opportunities with clients who perhaps can't be independent anymore, doing something they enjoy doing. We have a client actually who wrote to, who told his care manager that he was so thrilled to have his Debbie's Angel. He said, finally, I have a friend. I feel like it's been years since I've had a friend, and he likes all the same things that I like. And in fact, they're quite different people, but the fact that he feels like his angel and he share all these interests is just wonderful. It's a real success story.
All right, thank you, Susie. Jill Berkman.
Hi, thank you, Jan and Laura, for putting this together and including me. I'm Jill Berkman with Moncordia. I'm their business development manager, and I've been in the senior services industry for, I think it's going on 20 years now. In Montgomery County, a native of Montgomery County, who has, dealt with some issues with my own parents and grandparents over the years, and that got me into this business. I'm happy to be with Moncordia after spending many years working in senior living communities, and now being on the other side, helping people to stay at home and thrive independently and stay as independent as possible for as long as possible. Moncordia is a bit of an industry disruptor. We are providing what we call concierge companion care, very much like what Susie's company does as well, where we provide a high-level college-educated, often a retired professional, as a concierge companion. And so this is care or assistance that does not include personal care, bathing, dressing, toileting, but really focuses on engagement, taking someone to a museum, out to lunch, doing things outside of the home that they might not feel safe doing on their own, or maybe just need, a friend to go with them, to be safe and to have conversations with. Also doing things at home, gardening, organizing their office. We really want you to think outside the box with our concierge companions. They are former attorneys, nurses, teachers, so they come with a lot of life experience that can relate to the clients that we have. They all have a passion for doing this, working with older adults, and usually have experience working with their families or with neighbors. They found that they were doing this in their personal life and just decided to make this a career. We also offer care management as well. And we cover Montgomery County, DC, and we're now moving into Northern Virginia.
Thank you, Jill. Great to know you're all out there with these various levels of service, and we're going to get into a deeper dive into what it is you can offer folks. So let's start with our myths and truth. The first one, and I think you all may have even said this yourself or heard your friends say it, I can handle this myself with a little help from my family and friends. Let's talk about the truth of that statement. Who wants to take that one to start? Steve?
Sure. So look, I have calls with people all the time who don't want help at home, either because they feel that they have failed their loved one if they can't do it on their own, or they don't know what to do with a person, or they don't want someone in their home. And so the reality is, if you're the primary caregiver for a loved one, it's exhausting and it will wear you down. And in the end, you're the safety net. So you have to stay healthy, stay strong. You have to stay hydrated, do all the things that you need to do so that you can be your best self to take care of a loved one, especially if someone has dementia and they look and sound exactly the same as the person they were, but they aren't anymore. It's exhausting dealing with a person who used to be this very bright individual and now is struggling to tie shoelaces or button buttons and asks the same questions repeatedly. It takes a toll. So people need a break. And that's where all of us come in to help provide that break, whether it's someone like us who needs a little help with dressing or just companionship to be able to go out and see a movie, or need care management to help figure out, is there an adult day program that might be available? So again, it's okay to ask for help. Give yourself permission because it matters really for you to be healthy.
Susie, Jill, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would just second what Steve says. I spoke with 3 wives in the last couple of weeks who all have gotten to that point where they realize they can't do it themselves, and their friends are telling them, it's gotten to the point where this is bigger than you are. And I just emphasize, it's not that you've failed at anything, it's just the illnesses that we're seeing more of now, because people are living longer, are just bigger than what any one person can do for, typically for a number of years. It's not like the 40s and 50s when people had heart disease, they had a heart attack and then they died. So there wasn't the years of caregiving that there are now.
Yeah, I just want to throw in an anecdotal story. I met with a couple recently who is on a waiting list for a senior community and knows they need to get their house ready to go on the market. And they were saying that, it's hard for them to be the caregiver. Like the husband has really had a lot of medical issues, as well as cognitive decline. So the wife has been the sole caregiver for years now. And she's worn out. She told me she was now being treated for depression. And that's the toll it took on her. But she's trying to be in control and get the help that she needs, which is really important, that respite, right, for caregivers.
And Jan, what I think a lot of people don't realize is that through help at home, either with a companion care or even personal care, and especially with care management, we help the whole family. I met with a client yesterday. He has early dementia, but we're really helping her. She needs a break. She works at home. He's at home. She has to keep him busy, monitor what he's doing, make sure he's safe. And so he takes a lot of attention. So what her request was, could somebody come in and just help us with cooking so that she didn't have to devote the time to make dinner every afternoon and could have that time to herself, and that the two of them could enjoy dinner together at the end of the evening after a companion leaves. And so bringing somebody in just to do the cooking not only helps the client, who will build a relationship with them, and eventually they'll go out and do things together and spend time together and work on projects together, but it helps his wife, who doesn't necessarily need care, but needs the support in the home as well.
Very critical, actually. All right, let's move on to the next myth, which is, did I skip one?
Yep.
I did. Sorry about that, folks. So here's the myth. All licensed companies do the same thing the same way. Well, we know there's some differences between the 3 we have here today. So if you guys would like to elaborate on the difference between what you do, that would be very helpful. Susie, you want to take that one?
Sure, I can jump in on that. So our care managers are either registered nurses, social workers, or gerontologists. And so we bring a variety of backgrounds and knowledge base to our clients. So among care management companies, not all care management companies include all of those 3 disciplines. And when we make a match between a client and a care manager, we're really looking at what will be the best fit in terms of skill set and personality. We do have one of our longtime nurse care managers is a male. And for some families, that's like the absolute perfect thing to have a man come into the house rather than all of these women always telling their husband what to do. And in other situations, they're like, no, my mom would never be comfortable with a man. Don't you have any lady care managers? So, when we're looking at payment through long-term care insurance, typically because our care managers have these certifications, we're able to help with that. And I know we have another slide that we'll get to that later, so I won't do too deep a dive in there.
Right, so I'll talk a little bit about home care and home care companies. So there's a broad spectrum of what help at home can look like. On one end is more like Moncordia and Debbie's Angels, where folks do not have a credential to provide personal care, but may have advanced degrees in other areas and are super smart and interesting and highly engaging people that can provide activities and comfort. And then you have folks that are more like our aides who, again, we have some with advanced degrees as well from other countries, but who are all certified nurse aides. So they're all the same people that work in hospitals and rehabs. They just work in a home setting. And they can not only provide assistance with, bathing, dressing, toileting, but they can also drive to errands, doctor's appointments. They can help with cooking and meal preparation and light housekeeping. So they are a sort of full slate of kind of person that can help out in the home. And then you have other types of companies that have either registries, which are caregivers, but they're not hired through a company. They're independent contractors. So you're responsible for managing them. You're responsible for hiring and firing them. They are vetted, but they're not having taxes withheld. They're not covered by insurance, and they're not supervised by a nurse, but they're typically less expensive. And then there is the host of private caregivers that you can just find, who post signs on the side of the road that says, hey, I'm a caregiver. And again, they're less expensive, and they come with the upside of being less expensive and the downside of you don't know who these people are, other than the fact that they can put a sign on the side of the road. So that's sort of the range, and I'm happy to talk further if somebody wants to know more in detail. And Jill, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Moncordia is a little different. We're a boutique agency. We, hire less than 1% of the people who apply to be a companion. And the concierge companions for us all have to have a college degree, some kind of, background that's relatable to our clients. And we do cost a little bit more. So you're talking about a different kind of care partner, different kind of companion, different kind of client who is willing to pay a little bit more for somebody who does seem more like a friend or a family member or a former colleague. We have a lot of clients who have experience, having staff in their home already and are used to having a personal assistant. So that's one way to think of our concierge companions as more like a personal assistant. Just met with somebody yesterday who used to be in acting, was used to working with a stage manager. That's how we get in the door with our clients. This is like a stage manager, and they can relate to that instead of bringing in somebody who may seem like a traditional caregiver. We do have only employees with us, and they go through extreme vetting, multiple interviews with every manager in the company, and thorough background checks and so forth. And then we also do training, and I know Steve and Susie are probably doing extensive training as well. We really make sure everyone's very educated in dementia care, which is huge. Mental health issues are huge right now. Knowing a little bit about that and bringing guest trainers in to help our companions learn that. And we even do Ritz-Carlton's customer service training. So we do cost a little bit more, and we're not for everybody. And I want to say that we partner with Assisting Hands, Steve's company, and with Susie's company, because we all can work together this way. Many people love their personal care aide. They don't want to lose them. They're wonderful with them at bathing, dressing, driving them someplace, being with them. They've really grown close to that person. But maybe that person doesn't want to drive them to a baseball game or go to a restaurant, you know, out to lunch. And similar with care management. Care managers are stretched quite a bit lately, and in our company and other companies. And so we sometimes use our companions to help care managers out and meet the Comcast guy, so that the care manager can really focus on the bigger picture and you know, more serious things that they're working with a client.
Great to know about. Absolutely. Let's move on to the next myth. I'm required to use the company recommended by my doctor or nurse. Most people think that when their doctor tells them something, they've got to do it, right? So what's the truth about this myth?
I can jump in on this one, Steve. I'm sure you have a few things to say as well. I think this comes up most typically when somebody needs orders for, or is getting orders for physical therapy or occupational therapy. And there are some hospitals which also own home health, which is different than home care. Maybe this would be a good time to talk about those two categories.
Yes.
So home health is typically covered by Medicare or whoever your primary insurance covers, and they will do wound care, nursing care, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. In your home, typically, if you qualify for home services, and a lot of doctors that we know, they have a company, they just, maybe it's whoever was in the week before marketing, or they have a client who's very happy with that company, and so they just continue to give out that one name. Even when you're discharging from the hospital, you have choice as to which rehab you want to go to. You have choice when you're returning home as to which home health company to work with. So we help people make educated choices about which company to work with. And then the same would be in terms of if you were choosing home care or care management, you have complete choice around that as well. And sometimes there are people who have strong relationships, and they'll encourage people to use just the one company they have experience with. But Steve, I know you are involved in this a lot as well.
Yeah, so one of the things I find interesting is, look, if you are at a hospital or rehab and you're looking for discharge, they're either going to give you a list or they're going to tell you who they recommend for home health or home care. And as Susie said, oftentimes it's simply because that was the last person in who talked to them. So, you know, Assisting Hands, we actually don't market that way. We are mostly based on word of mouth from people who think we did a good job, as opposed to currying favor with the community. So you may not often get, if you're in a rehab, a referral to Assisting Hands, because that's not how we go and market. We don't try to work with those folks. We try to work with people more like Susie and with Jill's team, because they're the ones that really are independent. They're evaluating who they think would be a good fit, because there are over 250 home care companies in Montgomery County, and we're not going to be a good fit for every client. But people like Susie and Jill, they're going to know that, and they're going to make the appropriate referral. It may be to us, but it may not be to us because it may not be the strength or the location that we are best suited for. So I think oftentimes it's better to talk to folks that aren't in the communities. Talk to friends, talk to family, because oftentimes you get a more honest and open referral recommendation. And do your homework. Just because you get a recommendation from a hospital doesn't mean that that's who you should go with. Call that company, talk to them, find out, how quickly, if it's home health, how quickly can they get a nurse out to do the initial assessment? How quickly can they start care? Because those are the important things you need to know about, not that they happen to like Steve. The other thing, and Susie, I'm going to give a shameless plug for your Well Seniors program. That's sort of and Susie can talk about it later. It's a great program because you get in the system you get somebody who's out there who can learn about you, but you don't need them every day. They just check in on you. So when you need that resource recommendation, they already know you, they know who you are, and they can give you recommendations and resources. So I would explore those kinds of programs as well, because you have an expert at your ready when you need them.
Thanks, Stephen. I would also recommend neighborhood listservs, and villages often help people with
Yes.
these kinds of choices.
Yeah, this is very interesting. I think about the 2 knee surgeries, knee replacement surgeries I had, and how my doctor prescribed this person for the first 2 weeks they sent someone to your house. I just blindly went along with it, thinking, okay, this is what I have to do. So you're saying you can actually call people, interview people, decide who you want to use, right? So when you first bring them in for the first visit for an assessment, I guess it's a choice of whether or not the prospective client you're talking about or assessing chooses to work with you or not. And you're okay with those sorts of meetings, I suppose. It's probably par for the course in your industry. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And Steve raises a good point, and you do as well. Like, when can care actually start? And we know people from different home health companies, and I'll say, can you open a case on Saturday? So-and-so's coming home from the hospital on Friday, and they don't want to wait all the way until Monday. And this one company will start cases on a Saturday and will say, we have availability. As Steve said, usually when you're having home health, again, that's paid for by your insurance, a nurse has to open the case, even if your need may be more just for PT and OT, for instance. So who will be available to you when you need it, rather than having to wait until they're ready to send somebody out. So it's a real big issue right now.
This is great information, and I would say just this question and answer alone was worth the price of admission, because this is huge. I never even thought I could have a choice, right? This is great to know. So I don't know if anybody else wants to throw anything in on that comment, or if there's any other questions before we move to the next myth. If not, here we go. In-home care services are only appropriate after a hospital stay.
Well, I guess I can sort of jump in on that, but I think, both Jill and Susie probably have more to add. So we work with people in every state of their life. Our youngest client is 9 years old. Our oldest client is 103. And those people didn't come out of a hospital. They just needed extra help. So again, if you're having home health, which is OT, PT, those kinds of things, typically those are prescribed because you are discharging from a hospital or a rehab or after a surgery. But getting a little extra help at home, whether it be a companion or whether it be someone who's a certified nurse aide who can assist with activities of daily living, that's anytime you need somebody. And, all the companies out there, we work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And, same with Jill, we customize our care based around a client's needs. So if somebody only needs somebody, a couple of days a week for a certain number of hours, typically that's something we or Moncordia can do, because that's how we're set up to respond fairly quickly to people's needs. And as those needs change, we can either dial up or dial back the level of care that is provided.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Steve. We have a 1 hour minimum. Some people bring us in just to drive them somewhere once a week to their hair salon appointment. Or something small, a couple hours, couple times a week, to help organize the home as they're looking to make a move to senior living. And the earlier they start with getting any help at all with anything, the longer they'll stay independent. Many people think they need to be at a certain point in needing care before they can bring care in, and usually that's too late. When you start with home care too late, you're looking at longer hours, more expense, and possibly even move sooner to a senior living community or facility. So it's never too early to just get a little help from somebody and build a relationship with them too, so that you can add hours and build up the care you need and stay independent as long as you can.
I want to jump in for 1 second. I'm sorry, Jill, and just say, I love that point, because that's exactly what happens. People wait too long and they push themselves too hard. So they end up in more of a crisis type situation where they're bringing in care, versus if they had just had some help along the way. 80% of the people out there plan to age in place, right? They want to stay at home. But if without the care and support they need, it's not going to, they're not going to be there as long as they had hoped. So sorry to jump in, but
No, I love that
No,
great point.
it's true. And having worked in senior living communities, I know this because they would come to us in a crisis. They were independent and they had to fall because they had to carry the big heavy planter up the stairs, and they had to fall, and then they went to the hospital, and now they're in rehab, and now they can't go home by themselves. And so the family's looking at making a move to a senior living community or more care at home than they probably wanted to begin with. So yes, that's a very hard thing for people to accept, to get the care early on, because unfortunately, they're going to need a lot more care down the road if a crisis does happen.
And just to follow up on Steve's introduction, our Well Senior program is for people who don't have an acute need now, but want to start that relationship that Jill talked about. So it's run by our 2 staff gerontologists, and we meet with you, find out, what medications and diagnoses you have now and your medical power of attorney and so forth. Then we check in with you quarterly, and then we just visit with you once a year to make sure that everything's okay. One of our most recent Well Seniors we started with 2 years ago, she was waiting for a new kidney, and she actually finally got it last month. But she knew, I want to know who the people are. I don't want to be doing all this planning in a crisis. So when she got the word that we have a kidney for you, we sprung into action, and I started working with her, helping her with all of that post-op care that she needed. So that would just be one example of how people started that relationship with us through the Well Senior program.
That's a fabulous program. So good to know it exists. And you know what, this might be a good time to talk about, how does one pay for all this? What are the various fees? What does insurance cover? Who would like to tackle that one?
Well, I can start it. I think we'll all weigh in, and Steve and I both work with long-term care insurance, and Steve, I'll let you talk more about the veterans benefits. But I don't lead a very exciting life. I do read long-term care insurance policies every week, and I do read all 56 or 73 pages of them. So we are seeing more and more people who purchased it 10, 20, 30 years ago, and maybe they can't even find the original policy anymore and have to call to get the policy. To understand, I've been paying in thousands of dollars over decades. Now I think I might need care. What exactly will it cover? And it depends what was offered to you when you purchased the policy. A lot of people in this area have the federal long-term care insurance. And so they say, I've got the federal long-term care insurance. And I said, that's great. That's like saying, what kind of car do you have? I have a car. Okay, like a Rolls Royce or a used Corolla. And so long-term care insurances, some are very modest policies that cover some things and not others. And others are Cadillac policies where you have, $500 a day benefit and, $10,000 in care management and durable medical equipment covered and everything in between. So if you have long-term care insurance, that's definitely something that we help people understand what they have and how to use it. But other than that, care management is all a private pay, but it is considered a tax-deductible medical expense and will give you a statement at year end so you can deduct it on your taxes.
So I'll jump in next. So we also, and Susie and I share the failure to have much of a life because I spent 25 years practicing law. So I am often called to review people's long-term care policies. And there's a lot of things in there. And don't just take the word from the long-term company when you call them and say, so what are my benefits? Because honestly, half the time they're wrong because they've written so many policies over so many years that even the people that are reading from them have no idea what's actually in them. So getting the policy, reading the policy, seeing what you're eligible for really makes a difference. Some include a care management benefit, some don't. Some include a home modification benefit, some don't. Some include only care for physical needs like activities of daily living, bathing, dressing, toileting, feeding. Others include ones that include safety. So that could be just companionship that would cover part of what Jill's company does, or the Well Senior or the Debbie's Angel program. So it depends on the policy. And so it requires someone to read and understand it and look at it. And so again, care managers, they're the best ones to do that because that's what they do much of their day. It's something I, assisting hands, do because I just have the particular background. There are other opportunities for payment. We work a lot with veterans. So if a loved one was a veteran, even if they were just in the Korean War for 6 months or 8 months, they may be eligible for a covered benefit through the VA. It's a process. It's not easy because it's the VA, but we can help with getting the right forms and helping direct people in the right place. What the VA does is they will reimburse, they'll pay us directly for up to 40 hours of care a week, depending on someone's need and disability. And then there's also another program called ARC of Montgomery County that is a respite program for folks that live in Montgomery County that will subsidize the cost of home care for 40 hours a month, up to 140 hours a year. The requirements for applying are 2 people have to live together in the home. 1 person has to have a need, and I believe that they have to be over the age of 60, although they may have relaxed that standard now. And they have to be able to prove that they live together in Montgomery County and they have a need. It's not for the spouse with the disability. It's really for the person who doesn't have the problem, that is the primary caregiver that needs a break. There are also some other grants that are out there from some of the disease organizations that will also help subsidize the cost of care. Some companies will work with those grants and others won't, so you would need to check with whatever companies you're using. Home care, just to round it out, yeah, it's not cheap. It can range anywhere from $32 an hour on up to $30 to $40 an hour, depending on the number of hours in a shift, the complications of the care that's required, the number of people. So all of that really varies depending on the company and depending on the need. So Jill, you can finish up.
I have a quick question for you, Steve,
Yeah.
on Veterans Aid, though. Is this similar to Medicaid in the way that they have to spend down their assets to be eligible, or no?
No, there is a program called Aid and Attendance that is a VA program that is very much like that. There are lots of qualifications and exclusions of income, but what we have found is that in Montgomery County, at least, we don't have a lot of clients that have virtually no assets and also can still continue to live in their home in Montgomery County. So we don't get a lot of calls for people that have the Aid and Attendance program. There could be other people that do. This is called the Home and Community-Based Service Program that is for folks with disabilities, and there is an income component, but it really depends on the level of disability, and how that all works is beyond my knowledge, but the more disabled you are, the less income matters, and that's about all I know.
Okay, thank you.
Moncordia is about twice as much for our concierge companion care. So insurance doesn't cover that. It is private pay, but we do work with long-term care insurance. We have someone in our office who's happy to review and actually contact the companies to work all of that out. And some policies have covered that. Really depends on your policy, as Susie was mentioning. And, as Steve was talking about the VA, even the Aid and Attendance program, it's been a while since I've worked with it, but people could get $1,500 to $2,000 a month for that if they were a veteran. And there were some income and asset qualifications back in the day. I don't know if that's true now, but people would think, well, I can't afford Moncordia or home care because I am limited in income and assets. What we've told some people is get your VA benefit, because perhaps your family is paying for your care. And sometimes any benefit you're getting, your long-term care insurance or your VA benefits, is going to help you not only get the care you need, but if you want to bring in something like companion care, or you are living in a senior living community and you want a larger apartment, those kinds of things can just make your life better. So I encourage everyone to explore whatever options they have, even if they think they have too much money to qualify.
Okay. Jan, before we jump to the next slide, we do
Yeah.
have a question in the chat, if that's okay.
Sure, yeah.
So the question is, we moved into a single family home that is designed for age in place. We have the ability to add a private apartment in the basement. How do we find qualified live-in help?
So I can start with that, and you all can help out. So, we do live in. So we have aides that live in people's homes. They work approximately 16 hours a day. They're on shift. They have to have an 8-hour sleep schedule. They have to have a room that they can sleep in with a bathroom. And for us, we would typically have 2 people that do that. One person who works and lives in the home 4 days, and another person who would work and live in the home 3 days. We don't believe in a 7-day live-in just because we think people need a break and to be their best selves. Working 16 hours a day, 7 days a week with no break is not something we do. Other companies do that. And again, you can do it the way some people do. You can go on care.com and look up who'll do live-in. Again, you take risks with that, but it's going to be less expensive as an option by doing that. I suspect also both Jill and Susie, as care managers, have resources that are beyond what Assisting Hands can do in terms of helping people find qualified live-in for their loved ones.
Yeah, that's correct, Steve. And I would say if you know specifically that you want live-in care, there is one company, Grandma Joan, that's a ELCA corporate sponsor. And all they do is help with that live-in care placement. So they're a national company. And they walk you through all of the steps and help you with the taxes and set up the payroll and all of that. So they're not a locally based company the way Steve is, but they have been doing live-in care matching caregivers with families, kind of the way you might look for a nanny or housekeeper. So you pay just one flat fee to Grandma Joan, and they work, and you pay that only once they've made a match with you and found a live-in caregiver. But outside of Grandma Joan, I would say our local home care companies are your best resource because they know their caregivers. That's one area I would say where it's just who's available at the moment. Working with Steve, typically a caregiver, live-in caregiver would stay with the family for years until the person moves to skilled nursing or passes away, and then they're available for a short window of time, and then they're ready to go back to work. So that's one time when sometimes talking to a couple of different people to see who they have available right at that moment when you're looking for it and who's the best match for your situation.
I have a quick question about that. Is it correct to assume that if you have live-in care, that the cost of the care might be a little less since you are providing the living accommodations, or no?
Yes, it is a little less expensive. The one thing that people mention to us frequently, and they probably mention it to Jill and Steve, is, isn't there a student who would love to live rent-free with my mom? I've been doing this for 30 years. I think I knew one family once that had that type of a situation work out, but it's one of those, I would put it more in the myth category than the truth category, in terms of a way to meet your care needs.
This is very, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead,
This is
Jill.
very popular in this area in Montgomery County to have private live-in caregivers. And we get the request often, and similar to Steve, we might be able to provide somebody who could do, two people who could do 12-hour shifts. We do tell people to consider, looking at something like Assisting Hands, because if you're going with an agency, at least you have some insurance and you have backup. If you've got one private caregiver who's living with you and they become ill or want to go on vacation, where are you going to turn to? At least with an agency, they're licensed, they're bonded, they're insured, and you've got some backup if you need it.
Jill, that's the point I was going to make, because personally from my family, we had a situation where we were trying to figure this out down in Florida, and my parents insisted on hiring their cleaning lady's daughter to come in. And about a week and a half into it, guess who doesn't show up? And they're there, we're here, and there's nobody in the house. So at that point, we were able to convince them to go with a care agency, because that way it wouldn't happen again. If someone doesn't show, someone will be provided if someone calls out sick or quits or whatever. So I'm a big proponent of working within the system to make sure that your needs are covered.
And so, one of the things, just to sort of finish up on, look, there are private caregivers out there who are very good, and Grandma Jones will vet people, and they're going to be cheaper option than Assisting Hands, because you're hiring an independent contractor and then they're on you. So if you don't like the person, you have to fire them. You can go back to Grandma Jones and they'll help you find another person, but you're responsible for them. And so it's it's a trade-off of value. Do you value what a company offers, which is they're covered by workers' comp and general liability insurance? We have a nurse, or other home care companies have nurses on staff in the event there's an issue or problem. You don't like the person, we take care of that. All of those things come with an added cost. So if cost of you is your driving factor because it needs to be economically, then you still want to do it the best way you can by using a company that will vet people, that is there in the event that you need a replacement. They may not be the one to fire the person, but they will be the one that can help you find the next qualified person. So it's really a question of, what do you want to do? What's your tolerance for risk? And what do you value? If you value safety and security, then typically you would gravitate more towards paying more in an agency. If you can't afford the luxury of the security, then you gravitate more towards hiring qualified private caregivers. There's no right answer. It's just whatever works best for you at the time.
And I quickly just want to mention that I sometimes work with some more affluent clients who have private caregivers, but some of these private caregivers have taken advantage of the client. And, when you're hiring an agency, they're not allowed to accept gifts or anything, any, special consideration. But when you've got somebody private and your dad has dementia, and I am working with somebody right now trying to work through this, and they've asked them for a loan, and dad considers this person, they're very dependent, they're very codependent on the person who's working with them in the home, who is not affiliated with anybody. They're just, a random person, and the family is trying to move that person out. But, dad has dementia and doesn't want to lose that person that is feeding him, cooking for him and driving him around and is still in charge of his finances. So there's always that risk.
That can be scary.
And I just want to put a plug in for working with agencies. I think the myth is out there that if somebody comes into the house, they are definitely gonna go through my mom's dresser and steal our family jewelry or try to steal the identity. There's a lot of fear out there. And I don't remember what I was watching, but they were saying, the news never reports 5,000 planes landed safely today. That's not news. The one plane that crashed is news. So everybody that I've met over the last 30 years has heard a story about a caregiver that's taken advantage of that situation, has taken advantage of a client. And they're aware that that's out there. In 30 years, the families that we work with, when they've worked with an agency such as Steve's or Jill's, where there is the background check and all the insurance and all of those kinds of things, I could probably count on two hands the number of times something has gone wrong. And then in each of those cases, the agency has been there to make the person whole, to work through the situation with the family.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next myth. Home health and personal in-home care cannot be used in a retirement community setting. That can't be true.
For us, we work anywhere a person is calling home at the moment. We've worked in hospitals, we've worked in rehabs, assisted livings, independent livings, memory care facilities, in hospitals, hotels. When someone's been recovering from plastic surgery and doesn't want to go home to their family, we've spent a couple of days in the hotel with them. So, one of the things about, assisted living is you need to understand what it can do and what it can't do. So it's not wraparound care like one-on-one care. It's periodic incidental care throughout a day. And if that's all your loved one needs, and they need meals and they need their meds monitored, assisted living is a terrific option for many people. But if they need more than that, or they're impatient and they don't want to ring a bell and wait for someone to come help them get dressed in the morning, that's when, someone like Jill's group or our group or Debbie's Angels can go work with a family. Now, we can go in and provide the personal care, and we do. We work in a number of communities where we're there to supplement the care that's already being provided by the community. And we are welcome. We work in partnership with them. And so, it's an opportunity. Everyone's working to do what's best for that individual. So there's no gamesmanship or playing. They don't hate us. We don't hate them. It's all about working together to provide the best care for that person in the environment that they're in at that time.
We have several clients who live in assisted living or independent living. I can think of, a couple that live in assisted living in Loudoun County, and they started off with a companion, and have now moved. One is in memory care, one is in regular assisted living, and our companion goes 4 days a week for most of the day to be able to bring them together. The staff at this particular place they don't have the staffing for someone to bring one to the other. And this couple want to be together as much as possible, but one does have dementia and may need some monitoring. And they may both not appreciate the same activities that are going on at that place, in one section or another. So our companion can help with that. We have another gentleman who likes to go out to concerts and stuff, and we take him from his assisted living out to concerts when he's ready. He's got season tickets, but something their bus isn't going to provide for one person.
I would also actually add to that truth side, Jan, that home health and personal care services can also be provided in skilled nursing facilities. Since since 2020, skilled nursing facilities have been very stretched in terms of their staffing. And Steve and I worked recently with a client who was moving to skilled nursing after a hospitalization, and he was he had dementia, and he had difficulty, like they said, push the button and wait for help, and it would get him very agitated. And then he'd call his wife and she'd get agitated. And so having somebody with him for part of each day, the parts where he most needed help, really calmed him down, let him get the therapy that he needed, and also gave the wife a break from these phone calls she was getting at all hours of the day and night. Where are you? Why am I here? Those kinds of things. So definitely, and as well in the hospital, we work with putting home care in place in the hospital and skilled nursing facility to facilitate that best case scenario of the person healing and being able to get back to whatever level of care that they were at before they had their medical crisis.
All right. We may have spoken about this a little bit so far in our conversation. The myth is in-home care services are only appropriate after hospital stay. I think some of the things you guys have talked about are obviously that the truth is that you can offer preventative services. So I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add to that.
I think we actually covered this slide previously, so.
Yeah, we're good. All right, I can save money by hiring a caregiver outside an agency. Well, we've talked about that too, the sign on the side of the street. I think we're not going to be doing that, right? Is anything else you'd like to add to that?
Look,
I think we've covered that.
All
Yeah.
made good points, yes. So, well, this is good timing because we had advertised till 12 o'clock and it's 12 o'clock on the dot. I'd like to thank our panelists, Steve Lorberbaum with Assisting Hands Home Care, Jill Berkman with Montcordia, and Susie Elder Murphy with Aging Well Elder Care. And congratulations again on your 35th anniversary. We're so appreciative that you made time to be here for us. And thank you to the attendees who came. I would like to mention one other thing. Capital Senior Solutions hosts a free monthly Downsizers Club. And this is a small support group that meets the first Friday of every month on Zoom. And it's just a small support group that offers resources. We share challenges. We give homework every month, follow up on it the following month. And this is for anybody who, whether you're, aging in place or planning to downsize, whether you're 1 year or 5 years away. We started a year ago in August and now have a very faithful following. And it's been really beneficial for our members. And we've actually had some graduates. What's a graduate? Well, a graduate is someone who's actually gone through the downsizing process, sold their home, and either moved to a smaller home or into a community. So it's a really great resource for you guys. If anyone has any interest or if your clients have any interest, please send them to capitalseniorsolutions.com to the seminars page where you can sign up for our Downsizers Club as well as seminars that we have coming up. I do see a couple of things in the chat. Jesse posted an evaluation in the chat. If you have time to click that real quick and give us an evaluation on the presentation. We have a comment, a great panel and discussions. Thanks for organizing this. You're very welcome. So if there are any other questions or comments, I wish everyone a wonderful day and a fabulous holiday season.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye all.
Very much.
Bye.
Bye.